The Senate map just changed, and I mean that literally. Two of the biggest wildcard primaries of this entire midterm cycle have now been settled. Abdul El Sayed just won the Democratic nomination in Michigan, and in Maine, Troy Jackson has stepped in to replace Graham Plattner after his campaign completely fell apart. So today I'm walking you through my full updated 2026 Senate map, race by race, coast to coast, with these two new developments baked in. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which seats are locked, which ones are in play, and which four races will actually decide who controls the Senate. By the way, please leave your questions or comments in the comment section. I will answer each one individually as time permits. Also, I would be very happy if you like the video and subscribe to my channel. Now let's continue. Let's start with the seats that are already decided, because there are more of them than you might think. Republicans are sitting on a rock-solid foundation in Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and South Carolina. Trump ran up massive numbers in every one of these states in 2024, and that gives the GOP 44 safe seats walking in. Remember, Republicans only need 50 seats to hold the chamber because Vice President Vance breaks any 50-50 tie. On the other side, Democrats are just as locked in across Oregon, Colorado, New Mexico, Illinois, Virginia, Delaware, New Jersey, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts. 43 seats, safe and boring, which is exactly how you want your base states to look. That leaves 13 races that actually matter, and I'm going to rank every single one of them, from the ones barely worth worrying about to the four that could flip the entire chamber. Let's start in Maine, because the story here just got a lot more interesting. Democrats were staring down a disaster when Graham Plattner's campaign imploded under a mountain of controversy, but the swap to Troy Jackson looks like it might have saved them. The betting markets agree. Democrats have climbed to a 64% chance of winning this seat since Plattner dropped out back in July. And here's the thing people forget. Maine is a blue state at its core. Harris carried it by 7 points, even in a cycle that leaned red nationally. Now factor in that 2026 is shaping up to favor Democrats by more than 7 points on the generic ballot. And Susan Collins is suddenly staring down a brutal environment. She's pulled off miracles before. She won by 9 points in 2020, even as Biden carried the state by the same margin, but she's not the same candidate anymore. Morning Consult has her as the second most unpopular senator in the entire country. Her best hope was Plattner dragging the Democratic ticket down with him. That's gone now. I'm calling Maine tilt Democratic. Next stop, New Hampshire, where Jeanne Shaheen's retirement leaves Democrats defending open ground in a state that never seems to want to give anyone a blowout. Harris only won it by 3 points in 2024, making it the sixth straight presidential cycle decided by single digits there. But with the national mood running this favorably for Democrats, Congressman Chris Pappas would have to badly underperform to lose, even against a credible Republican like former Senator Scott Brown. I've got New Hampshire leaning Democratic. Now let's head to Ohio, because this one's genuinely a coin flip. Governor Mike DeWine tapped Lieutenant Governor Jon Husted to fill Vance's old seat, so Husted is running as an appointed incumbent, never an easy position. His opponent is former Senator Sherrod Brown, one of the strongest recruits Democrats have anywhere on the map. Brown lost by about 3.5 points in 2024, but he still ran nearly 8 points ahead of Harris, who lost the state by 11. If Brown can pull off that same overperformance in an environment this favorable to Democrats, he wins comfortably. The problem is the polling doesn't fully back that up yet. Brown holds a narrow lead in the average, but Husted has actually led in 3 of the last 5 polls, including the most recent New York Times survey. The prediction markets see this as basically a toss-up with Brown holding the thinnest of edges. And honestly, when a race is this tight, I tend to trust the underlying fundamentals over the noise, and those fundamentals still give Republicans a slight edge here. Now to Michigan, where we finally have our matchup set in stone. Progressive Abdul El Sayed edged out moderate Congresswoman Haley Stevens in the primary, while Republican Mike Rogers cruised through unopposed. This is Rogers' second consecutive Senate run after losing by fewer than 20,000 votes last cycle, so he's not starting from scratch. He's got infrastructure and name recognition already built. Still, he's fighting the fundamentals in a state that's essentially a coin flip on paper, but tilts Democratic by roughly 7 points in this particular environment. If El Sayed underperforms that baseline badly, it'll validate every worry establishment Democrats have had about running a progressive in a swing state. And the markets have reacted. Democratic win probability dropped to 59% after the primary, down from nearly 80% back in February. I think that's an overcorrection. Republicans haven't won a Senate seat in Michigan this century, and in a genuine blue wave environment, El Sayed would need to badly stumble to actually lose this. I'm calling Michigan tilt Democratic, and it's sitting much closer to lean than it is to flipping red. Down in the Southeast, two states that used to be reliably Republican are now clearly trending the other way. Georgia was supposed to be the GOP's best flip opportunity of the cycle. Instead, incumbent Jon Ossoff has turned into one of the strongest fundraisers in the country, on pace to become the first Senate candidate ever to top $100 million raised. His opponent, Congressman Mike Collins, is under investigation by the House Ethics Committee and has managed to raise only about $7 million. Ossoff is now polling 7 points ahead, and prediction markets give him better than a 90% shot at winning ICE, remarkable for a state Trump carried just 2 years ago. I've still got it as lean Democratic, though a case could easily be made to bump it up to likely. Then there's North Carolina, which has quietly become maybe the easiest pickup on the entire board for Democrats. Former Governor Roy Cooper left office with strong approval ratings still intact and has translated that statewide network into a massive fundraising edge over Republican Michael Whatley, a first-time candidate who's trailing in every single poll by a comfortable margin. I've got North Carolina as lean Democratic too, and like Georgia, don't be shocked if this slides into the likely column before November. Florida looks like it's staying red. It's not the marquee battleground it used to be after Trump won it by 13 points in 2024, and Republicans have a genuinely strong incumbent in Ashley Moody, who delivered the largest statewide GOP win this century when she took the Attorney General race by 21 points back in 2022. The only reason Florida isn't in the safe column is the national mood working against Republicans everywhere right now. Back up to the Midwest. Minnesota looks likely Democratic. Tina Smith is retiring, and much like Michigan, Democrats appear headed toward nominating progressive Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan over the more centrist Angie Craig. Republicans countered with an interesting name, former NFL sideline reporter Michelle Tafoya, who might have made this genuinely competitive in a friendlier environment, but Minnesota's baseline lean plus this national climate is just too much to overcome. In Iowa, Joni Ernst's retirement opened the door, and Republicans nominated Congresswoman Ashley Hinson, who, according to Split Ticket's wins above replacement data, was the only Iowa House Republican to actually outrun the state's fundamentals in 2024. Polling shows this race tight, but I think Hinson is simply too strong a candidate for Democrats to overcome Iowa's Republican lean. I'm giving her the edge. That brings us to the 4 races that will actually decide control of the Senate. As it stands, Democrats are sitting at 49 seats, Republicans at 47. If the rest of the map holds the way I've called it, Democrats need exactly 2 of these final 4 to flip the majority. First, Nebraska, the most Republican-leaning competitive race on the entire map, but also one of the states that has shifted toward Democrats fastest since 2016. Once again, Democrats are backing independent Dan Osborne, who came out of nowhere in 2024 and came within 7 points of unseating longtime Senator Deb Fischer in a far more Republican-friendly year than this one. This time, he's facing Senator Pete Ricketts, who Morning Consult ranks as just as unpopular as Fischer was. Early polling has Osborne either leading or within a point in every single survey so far. Prediction markets still favor Ricketts at better than 70%, which honestly feels a little high to me, especially next to Iowa, where Republicans are only favored at 57%. I'm keeping Nebraska in the lean Republican column alongside Iowa, but don't be surprised if this one starts pulling a lot more national attention. Kansas is another fundamentally red state, but Democrats have nominated a genuinely well-known figure in Pastor Adam Hamilton to challenge incumbent Roger Marshall. I expect Hamilton to outrun the fundamentals, but like Florida, it would take an absolute blue tsunami for Democrats to actually flip this one. Texas might be the most chaotic story on the entire map. Attorney General Ken Paxton, with Trump's backing, knocked out incumbent Senator John Cornyn in the Republican runoff. And that might be the worst possible outcome for the GOP. Not only did they lose the advantage of incumbency, but Paxton is dragging around a felony securities fraud indictment, an impeachment by his own party's state house over corruption allegations, and long-running infidelity claims. Meanwhile, Democratic nominee James Tallarico is obliterating fundraising records, pulling in nearly $70 million against Paxton's $9 million, more than any non-incumbent Senate candidate in the country this cycle. The prediction markets now give Tallarico his best odds yet at 49%, just shy of flipping outright, and he's actually leading Paxton by over 1.5 points in the polling average, having led or tied in 6 of the last 8 surveys. For context, when Beto O'Rourke came within 3 points of Ted Cruz in 2018, he never once led in a single poll. Tallarico is already outperforming that. That said, Texas has gotten redder since 2018, especially with the Republican gains among Hispanic voters that powered Trump's 14-point win there in 2024. I'd want to see Tallarico stringing together consistent leads across a wider range of polls before I move this into the Democratic column. For now, it stays tilt Republican. That alone would technically clinch Republicans exactly 50 seats, but there's still one more Democratic pickup opportunity sitting on the board, and it might be the wildest race on the entire map: Alaska. Senator Dan Sullivan is in real trouble. He's the third most unpopular senator in the country, right there next to Susan Collins. And Democrats have recruited a genuine heavyweight in former Congresswoman Mary Peltola, the only Democrat to win statewide in Alaska in the last 20 years. The betting markets have favored her consistently since March, though at 55%, it's barely better than a coin flip. I honestly wouldn't be shocked if she pulls this off. The underlying fundamentals still favor Republicans, but Alaska has never played by normal rules, and Democratic energy keeps building nationally as Trump's approval numbers keep sliding. I've got Alaska tilting Democratic. Add it all up and you land on a 50-50 Senate with Republicans holding the majority purely because Vice President Vance breaks the tie. But I want to be clear, every single one of these tilt and lean races could move between now and November. And if even 2 of them break the other way, we're looking at a completely different Senate. Let me know down in the comments which of these races you think ends up surprising everyone.